Just 1 week ago, the 2023 college football season came to an end with Michigan winning the national championship over Washington. And while many may have viewed that as a sign to start taking a break from college football to debrief for just a few months, that is certainly not the case for us here at the Gridiron Expert. We're already looking ahead to 2024. And today, guys, we're here to bring you our way too early 2024 top 25 rankings, courtesy of us here at the Gridiron Expert. Just something fun to do to kind of give you an early look at who some of the top teams in the country are expected to be, what the landscape could be looking like here in a little over 8 months. And these top 25 rankings, guys, of course, will serve as the basis for our schedule preview series that will begin here in just a few months. Later in February, early March. All 25 teams of these will be featured, as well as 5 extra bonus teams. So something fun to kick off this offseason. Let's not delay any further. Our Gridiron Expert way too early top 25 begins with the Georgia Bulldogs. Not the reigning national champions in Michigan. No, the two-time champion before that, the Georgia Bulldogs. Look, Carson Beck returns. Trevor Etienne transferring in from Florida. The front seven defensively going to be very strong. Kirby Smart landing the #1 recruiting class in the entire country. It is not a shock to see the Bulldogs reclaim that #1 spot where they will sit until proven otherwise, although the Bulldogs do have a much more difficult schedule in 2024 than they had in 2023. But by far, to me, the best team in the country heading in to next season. But right behind them, though, Ohio State is closing that gap. You know, despite the Buckeyes once again missing out on the Big Ten championship, this year missing out on the college football playoff, and then falling to Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, the Buckeyes are loaded. They landed Will Howard at quarterback out of the transfer portal. Kyle McCord transfers over to Syracuse. Will Howard transfers in from Kansas State. Some are calling him just another Kyle McCord. I would disagree. I really like Will Howard. I think he's going to fit in perfectly with Ohio State. Even though they did lose Marvin Harrison Jr., they do return Emeka Egbuka. They return a majority of their defense from a top 5 unit from last year. They've got Quinshon Judkins transferring in from Ole Miss. You've got Travion Henderson returning as well. This Ohio State team is going to have an electric offense, one of the better defenses in the country, and this is a make-or-break year for Ryan Day. I think he will deliver. They come in at #2. Oregon making the transition from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. The Ducks went 12-2 in 2023, dominated Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl. Look, they've got a great quarterback room now. Dylan Gabriel transferring over to Oregon from Oklahoma. Dante Moore transferring in from UCLA. So if Gabriel were to go down or something bad would have happened, they've got a great quarterback right behind him and Dante Moore. A very good, solid wide receiver room. Kansas State safety Kobe Savage transfers in to anchor that defense after losing a handful of key pieces in the secondary there as well. Dan Lanning choosing to stay in Oregon after being rumored for the Alabama job. The Ducks are legitimate contenders, not just for the Big Ten championship in their first year there, but the college football playoff as well. And remember, the playoff expanding to 12 teams in 2024, so we're going to see a lot more teams getting in, a lot more teams having their shot, even if they were to lose even 2 games. They could still find their way in, which was something you couldn't do if you were still having the 4-team playoff format. #4, Texas. Quinn Ewers is returning. Steve Sarkisian is returning. The Longhorns have very good, solid running back depth. They've got Trey Moore coming in on the defensive side of the ball from UTSA, where he had 14 sacks last year. This is a Texas team, guys, transitioning to the SEC, that they have a legitimate shot to win the conference in their first year there. So Texas, once again, a playoff semifinalist this year, was just a 1 play away from making the national championship, where they would have played Michigan. Who knows what would have happened there? But getting Ewers back at quarterback, returning a good amount of their offense outside of the wide receiver position, is massive for the Longhorns. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with, just like they were this last year. Alabama, the Kalen DeBoer era beginning. They come in at #5. Some say put Alabama lower. When you lose the greatest coach of all time, it's going to be very hard to replace, hard to replicate the success. Kalen DeBoer is a proven winner, and I think he's going to continue that success right off the bat. I don't think Alabama really misses a beat here. They get in Jalen Milroe. He does return for another year. Whether or not Will Rogers comes with Kalen DeBoer, he was committed to Washington. He entered the transfer portal. We do not know at the time of this video. Alabama does need help on the offensive line. They do need some defensive help as well, but they're still going to be a top 10 team. For us, they're going to be a top 5 until proven otherwise. DeBoer had Washington in the national championship this last year. If he can get his guys in there, Alabama will be in the 12-team playoff in 2024. Ole Miss, kind of shocking to see the Rebels up at number 6. But look, Lane Kiffin is dominating, guys. They went 11-2 this last year. They won their Peach Bowl over Penn State. Jackson Dart returns at quarterback. They've got the number 1 transfer class in the country returning, like guys like Walter Nolan at defensive tackle, like Juice Wells transferring in from South Carolina. This Ole Miss team is going to be electric this year, and this could be the pieces that Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin finally needed to get over the hump to make that 12-team playoff, which will really benefit the Rebels. Ole Miss, guys, going to be very, very dangerous this year, and without a doubt, a top 10 team to start the season. Michigan in at number 7, the reigning national champions. Look, it kind of gets difficult here, 7 through 10, right? At the time of the video, a lot of unknowns. Michigan, the reigning champs, but Jim Harbaugh more than likely going to go off to the NFL. Maybe the Chargers, we don't know. But he's going to be gone. J.J. McCarthy already announcing his intention to enter the NFL draft. So there's still a lot of unknowns relating to the coaching staff for Michigan and the remaining players for Michigan, whether they choose to transfer, whether they choose to enter the draft. We don't know. But right now, I've got to have Michigan in my top 10, although that could fluctuate in the coming weeks. Same can be said for Arizona. Before we get there, Notre Dame. Give me some credit for Notre Dame here. Mike Denbrock coming in as offensive coordinator. A great get by Marcus Freeman, bringing in Denbrock from LSU, where he coached the Heisman Trophy winner and Jaden Daniels, one of the best offenses in the entire country. They bring in Riley Leonard at quarterback, transferring in from Duke. Chris Mitchell, transferring in from Florida International, wide receiver, is massive for the Fighting Irish. And the majority of their defense returns from a top 5 unit in 2023, especially in the back 7. This is a very, very good Notre Dame team that I do think has the chance, and has a very good chance, I should say, to make the playoff in 2024. They come in at number 8. Arizona, they make the transition to the Big 12. They were an anomaly, right? Look, I'm keeping them in the top 10 right now. Ask me again in 2 weeks. Very well could be dropping them out. Why? Because Jedd Fisch made a shocking move to leave Arizona and go to Washington to replace Kalen DeBoer. It was a move that I think surprised a lot of us. If he ends up taking guys like Noah Fafita and Teteroa McMillan with him, this Arizona team is not going to be the team we want them or expect them to be in 2024. A team that's riding a 7-game winning streak, beat Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl, won 10 games for just the second time since 1998. All of that could be for nothing. All of that could go away if, in fact, a lot of those players go with Jedd Fisch to Washington. So a lot of unknowns as of this filming right now, but the Wildcats, if they can maintain a lot of their talent and get a similar offensive mind into as head coach, the Wildcats will still be a force to be reckoned with in their first year in the Big 12. Missouri in at 10, 11-2 last year. Eli Drinkwitz doing a phenomenal job. Brady Cook, Luther Burden, both returning this year at wide receiver and quarterback. They do lose Cody Schrader, but return him with Marcus Carroll, who rushed for over 1,300 yards at Georgia State. Going to be a very, very good Missouri team that's not going anywhere anytime soon. That rounds out our top 10. We'll go a little bit quicker from 11 to 25. Again, it's the way too early top 25. Things are going to change. It's all for fun. It's all for speculation. And we'll touch more on these teams in deeper detail when we do their schedule previews. We got Utah. They're transferring over to the Big 12. 8-5 last year, but Cam Rising, Brant Keithy, Micah Bernard, all returning in theory from their injuries that they did not play in 2023. Always a strong defensive line dominating the line of scrimmage. Utah really defied the odds last year by winning 8 games despite all the injuries. Should be significantly better this year in their first year in the Big 12. Had them ahead of LSU, who obviously loses Jaden Daniels, but Nussmeier, man, he looks good. Nussmeier looks really good at quarterback. Blake Baker coming in as defensive coordinator from Missouri was a massive get by Brian Kelly. The Tigers missed out on the college football playoff last year in a year where many thought they could make it. Should find themselves back in, or at least in contention this year, not suffering 2 losses in the month of September like they did in 2023. Oklahoma State, I love this Cowboys team, guys. A team that won 10 games. Alan Bowman returns for a 7th year at quarterback. The nation's leading rusher returns with Ollie Gordon. The entire offensive line returns. Brennan Presley returns. The defense really can't get much worse. Mike Gundy has this team rolling, and with the loss of Oklahoma and Texas, the Cowboys very well could be the favorite to win the Big 12 in 2024, despite us having Arizona and Utah both ahead of them. Tennessee, look, Nico Iamaleava is unbelievable, man. He is unbelievable at quarterback. We had a great game against Iowa. He's the quarterback of the future. We knew that. That's why he was a 5-star recruit. You've got him in there with a solid wide receiver core, including Chris Brazzell transferring in from Tulane. That Tennessee offense is going to be looking really good. They weren't bad in 2023. They're going to be even better in 2024. They fix up the defensive side of the ball. Josh Heupel is going to have a squad contending for an SEC title. Oklahoma, they make the move to the SEC. Jackson Arnold going to be their guy. Dylan Gabriel moving to Oregon. Jackson Arnold started that game against Arizona in the Alamo Bowl. Didn't look bad. Had his moments. got to take care of the football just a little bit better. But the Sooners do lose a lot on the offensive line. That's a major concern for me. The defense, though, should remain strong under Brent Venables, improved significantly last year. Hopefully they take that another step forward so they can contend in the SEC in 2024. Penn State in at 16. Andy Kotelnicki transfer coming in as the new offensive coordinator, and they need help. Penn State's got the talent, man. They've got it, but they've got to improve offensively. You've got a great quarterback in Drew Aller, but he does not know how to push the ball down the field. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen there as well. They lose Manny Diaz as defensive coordinator. He took the head coaching job at Duke, but Tom Allen, the former Indiana coach, comes in as the new defensive coordinator in Happy Valley, and he's going to do great things there. The Nittany Lions, they need to finally get over the hump. They need to win the Big Ten or at least get back to the playoffs. To do that, they've got to beat the big dogs like Ohio State, like Michigan. This is a great year to do it once again. Florida State. You go undefeated in the regular season, you get snubbed by the playoff committee, you lose by 60 in your bowl game, and now you go from a team that should have been in the top 4 down to 17 to start the year. The Seminoles lose a lot, though, guys. They practically lose their entire offense. 30 guys missed that Orange Bowl against Georgia because they opted out, declared for the draft, whatever you want to call it. Travis is gone. Their running backs are gone. Their wide receivers are gone. They lose so much. But DJ Uiagalelei, the former Clemson quarterback, has an opportunity to return Florida State to the promised land, or maybe this year they won't get snubbed by the playoff committee if they can deliver. Kansas is a playoff contender, believe it or not. The Jayhawks are legit, guys. Jalen Daniels should be back, returning from his injury that kept him sidelined for most of the year. Devin Neal, one of the best running backs, not just in the Big 12, but in the country. All of their top wide receivers are back. Jeff Grimes in as offensive coordinator. And the Jayhawks can improve defensively, watch out. Kansas is a team that can win the Big 12 and could find themselves in contention for a playoff spot. 12 teams, why not? Watch out for the Jayhawks, guys. They'll have one of the best offenses, I think, in the entire country. Washington, they had one of the best offenses in the entire country. That may not be the case this year, though. Depends on what Jed Fish can do as the new head coach and who he brings with him. Washington, quite the anomaly. Could see them rise depending on who they get. Could see them drop depending on what happens over these next few weeks. For now, keeping them at number 19. Kansas State rounding out the top 20. Avery Johnson looked phenomenal in the Pop-Tarts Bowl against NC State. He's going to be their quarterback to the future. The RPO offense that the Wildcats are going to run, and like they ran in that bowl game, going to be very, very difficult to stop. But they do have to replace the majority of their offensive line. They do have to replace their offensive coordinator, Colin Klein, who left for Texas A&M. A couple big changes, massive changes for the Wildcats that if they cannot shore up, could not result in a great year in 2024. But regardless, to me, still a top 20 team, still going to be a team that's very difficult to beat in the Big 12. To me, I think in Klieman we trust. That's the way I look at it. In Klieman we trust. He's continued to find the odds in Manhattan. I think he'll do it once again in 2024. Final 5 here. Got a slew of ACC teams here. That includes SMU, a newcomer, right? Clemson, 9-4 in 2023. Cade Klubnik, he's got to improve. The Garrett Riley-Klubnik experiment didn't really work out very well in 2023, and now they lose a lot of talent. They lose Will Shipley. They lose some top wide receivers. The defense, typically very strong under Dabo Swinney. It's to be expected, but if Clemson wants to get back to winning national titles, to winning ACC titles, they've got to improve significantly on the offensive side of the ball, especially just from a consistency standpoint. But we still have the Tigers in at 21st. NC State in at 22, also went 9-4 last year. Grayson McCall transferring in at quarterback in from Coastal Carolina. They also add Jordan Waters at running back from Duke. The defense, though, is what the Wolfpack are going to have to figure out. Peyton Wilson, their anchor, is gone, along with a handful of other key starters. Still, Dave Doeren continues to defy the odds. He, never doubt him. He always gets the most out of his teams. And with a revamped quarterback and a revamped offense, watch out for the Wolfpack guys as a sneaky ACC dark horse in 2024. SMU, though, they could be the same thing. The Mustangs making the move to the ACC along with California and Stanford. Look, this offense is loaded. Preston Stone returns from his injury. Jalen Knighton returns. 4 offensive linemen returns. If the defense can continue to improve, and I think they will, watch out for SMU. The Mustangs are flying under the radar, guys. They nearly made a New Year's Six bowl game this last year. Now they're in a power conference. But if things start to click, they could find themselves in ACC title contention by season's end. Do not sleep on them, despite the poor performance we saw out of them in their bowl game against Boston College. Louisville is another team you want to watch out for. They surprised everybody earlier in the year, fizzled out at the end of the year. They lose to Kentucky, they lose to Florida State, they get blown out by USC in their bowl game. Louisville was not the same team over the last 3-4 weeks of the season, but they added a lot of transfers. Jeff Brom might be up there as number 2 in terms of the transfer portal king. Lane Kiffin holds that title. Brom right behind him. Tyler Shugg transferring in at quarterback from Texas Tech. Colin Lacey and Ja'Cory Brooks going to be phenomenal additions at wide receivers. Penny Boone transferring in from Toledo. This is a revamped offense. It's going to be even better than they were in 2023, and they weren't bad in 2023. The defense is the thing that needs the most work, although they really weren't all that bad either in 2023. If they can revamp that, most of their starters do return, Louisville could find themselves in playoff discussion, kind of like they were towards the end of the year. If they had beaten Kentucky and Florida State, they would have had an argument, although I still don't think they would have gotten in. And then finally, guys, 25, tough to call. I think you give it to one of the Iowa teams. I think you give it to Iowa or Iowa State. I lean towards the Cyclones. This is a team that's expected to return 18 starters, including Rocco Becht, who really, all things considered, kind of being thrust onto the scene, played very good ball. You've got Abu Sama coming back. 5 offensive linemen returning. The entire line, the defensive line's loaded. This is a team, guys, that is just stacked from top to bottom, and a team that was so young last year, but defied the odds, won 7 games, fell to Memphis in their bowl game, sure, but Matt Campbell getting the most out of his team, playing really, really good football. With so much experience coming back, the Cyclones are a team that you do not want to doubt. Matt Campbell's a guy that you do not want to doubt. I got him in as a fringe top 25 team, give him the slight edge over their in-state rival in the Hawkeyes. We'll see what happens when they later on play each other. But this is going to be a great, great season, guys. 2024 is going to be here before we know it. But as we know, it's never too early to start looking ahead. This is our official Gridiron Expert Way Too Early Top 25. We'll revisit this here in a few months. But until then, leave your top 25. Leave us your bold predictions for this upcoming season. We'll have you covered with off-season topics, analysis, schedule previews, predictions every single step of the way. So do not miss out. But until then, guys, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. And of course, check out everything down in the description below. Non-stop exclusive off-season content for you there, especially over on the gridironexpert.com. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.